Hi everybody, Angry Dad Gamer here, and today we're going to be talking about Thanos Rising. We're going to do a quick review because a lot of other people have already reviewed this, and I'm going to do this as much as I can in a spoiler-free way. That's apparently part of the reason that usaopoly has not done a lot of promotion for this game. You would think, hey, why have I not seen TV ads for this? This is like a huge tie-in to a huge franchise, to a huge movie that was tied to an even bigger franchise. Why no ads? Well, apparently there were spoilers in this. So, okay, I lied. I'm already going to give you one spoiler. If you didn't already know, because it's about to hit the theaters, Ant-Man and the Wasp were not in Avengers Infinity War. They are also not in Thanos Rising Avengers Infinity War. Okay, we're not going to get into how to actually play Thanos Rising because usaopoly has already got a great explainer on that, as do a couple of other people like Geek and Sundry and other folks. So we're actually just going to talk real quick about sort of what the heck this game is and whether you think it would be great for all the little Marvel fans in your world. The mechanisms are you've got cards, you've got a big deck of cards that you're going to be drawing from. They've tried to make this fairly simple. So the cards that you're going to be drawing from include good guys and bad guys. Your goal, of course, is to defeat the bad guys. Now, you can't really defeat Thanos directly, so what you actually have to do is you have to defeat, to begin with, 7 bad guys, and there are definitely 7 bad guys in the deck that you can get. They recommend that your first game start with 7. We've still not beat 7, and we've played it 4 or 5 times already, so just keep in mind that if you want to defeat 3 or if you want to defeat 4, if you really are having a bad time of your life, then just try lowering that number. That if you want to say an easy variant, that's an easy variant right there. So a big part of this is card drafting because you're also drafting your good guy team. And they're going to assemble around this ring, which has Thanos in the middle. And as you can see, it's got 3 different sectors. And as Thanos rotates around, then he directs his attacks to you. Otherwise, it could be that some of the other bad guy henchmen, buddies of his, part of his guard, they also might attack depending on whether he has some of these Infinity Stones. Now, that is the point of all of this, of course, is that Thanos is trying to get the Infinity Stones. There's this really cool gauntlet and these cool gemstones that you put in as you go through the game.
Fine. I'll do it myself.
Basically what happens is about every turn, you roll a die that says, hey, this is the Infinity Stone that you're going to get a counter on, which means that he's one step closer to getting that. So there's also some dice rolling, and Thanos has a pair of dice, and you also have a whole set of dice that you're going to be rolling depending on who your main sort of character is. And you don't really play a character, you play a team, basically. And if you start assembling people that are on your team that have the same color scheme as you, then you start to really develop more and more powers because a lot of this stuff plays off of each other. Does that make sense? It kind of does when you start playing the game. The point is, they've given you a lot of little advantages that add up to more than the sum of their parts, and that seems to be the best way to play the game, which is sort of a hint, again, at the comics and, of course, the movies, is that, look, we all do better if we work in concert. So this is a cooperative game as well. So we've got card drafting, dice rolling, and, of course, cooperative. Believe me, there's no way that you would ever win this game if you just were to try to go up against Thanos yourself. And that's just like in the movies as well. This is for 2 to 4 people. I mean, you can play by yourself. You could play multiple teams. You could play all the teams if you wanted to by yourself. But it's a lot more fun if you have a lot more people involved. It's a fairly short game. We were able to wrap up, we were able to get beat by Thanos several times within about a half an hour. So it doesn't take that long to play. They would say 45 minutes on the box. I'm going to say you're probably going to have less time than that even, depending on how your dice go. Also, it is recommended for 10 years and up, although I think that a lot of kids, maybe 8, 9 years old would get this as well. Your mileage may vary on that because it depends on how astute and understanding the child is of game rules. If you play a lot of board games, this is not going to be unfamiliar to you. Again, it's in the vein of Pandemic. You're cooperatively trying to beat the game itself. And I'll tell you something, this one is extremely difficult. If you've ever had trouble with Pandemic, you're going to have trouble with this one as well. Mostly because even though there's a lot of factors involved, in other words, your dice and how you can cooperate with other people and the sort of luck of the draw in your hand and whatnot, all of those things combine to try to counteract Thanos. But Thanos, once he gets a couple of Infinity Stones, starts becoming more and more powerful, and he can become very powerful very quickly. It only takes a couple of bad draws, basically. If you are trying to fight off a lot of bad guys at the same time before you can kind of get your footing and build your team and sort of get them assembled, so to speak, it can be very, very difficult. So don't let those early missteps throw you. It's still a whole lot of fun. It's really the challenge of it. And you know that you're going to be going up against Thanos. You know that the odds are stacked against you. And believe me, they are. Even things like the sort of bonus tiles that they give you, those you only get if you defeat a bad guy. So even those, which in other games you might get those fairly regularly, here you are thrust into the middle of things just like in the movies, and you are sink or swim time, basically. So again, if you really want to just sort of involve yourself in what the movie was like, that is what this is all about. And I think usaopoly has done a really good job of giving you the experience of like, holy crap, we are massively outgunned and we are barely a team. Because that's what it feels like every time. You have to sort of assemble your teams and ideally assemble them in order of the way they're kind of, you can sort of think of them being aligned in the movies. And then you have to go up against his bad guys in order to defeat him. So you really never defeat Thanos. Now, there's some cool stuff in the box. In fact, you can tell that usaopoly is obviously gearing this towards not just collectors, but also people who are just fans of the movie. So it comes with a pre-painted Thanos figure in the box. A lot of people have gone through and they have, of course, made this better. His hand is so small that it's hard to find gemstones that would be the size, but I've seen someone who actually put little gemstones in the glove, but I almost said power glove. This is not a Nintendo game. It has really good build quality. The dice are great. The print quality is great. But this is usaopoly. We're used to that. They put a lot of time and effort into this as well. I can tell that a lot of time went into try to balancing things and whatnot. It still is very difficult, even at the most simple level. You'll be lucky to get 3 or 4 bad guys beat, even on your first couple of times playing this one. But if the dice roll right, if your cards wind up being pulled right, then you do have a chance. Believe it or not, it is possible to defeat Thanos, but you want to have a good team, you want to have a lot of coordination, and you want to think through everything very carefully before you move. That's where I could see a winning game probably taking 45 minutes to an hour to play, especially if you have 4 people. Now, I'm not going to get deep into how you play Thanos, but the basic mechanic is a little bit like Yahtzee and a little bit just like a deck pulling game. So you're going to be drawing your heroes, and the hero's toughness basically ranges from 4 to 6 little chicks there. So as you go through, you'll notice that some of the characters can take not a lot of damage, like Shuri. Some of the characters can take a ton of damage, like Black Panther and the Hulk. On the bad guy side, the good news is that it pretty much goes from 2 to 3. Like your General Outrider might have 2, and Ebony Maw might have 3. Now, here's the thing. At the end of the day, Thanos actually has 3 different win conditions that will allow him to win the game versus you. The only thing you can do is kill 7 or more bad guys, depending on how much pain you want to endure. So the ways that Thanos can win, of course, if he gets all 6 Infinity Stones. And remember, most of those counters wind up notching up just about every turn. If 10 or more heroes are defeated, Thanos also wins. If any one player has all the heroes on their team defeated, then all of the players lose. Basically, you've eliminated one of the bases of operation. That's a little bit of a weird aspect of this, is that you have this sort of like base of operations, but it makes a lot of sense in the context of the game because the dice, which have different colors, sort of represent the 4 different conceptual areas of energy, you might say. On the green die, the predominant side that you're probably going to end up rolling has like a triangle and a circle and an eyeball, which I'm assuming is like the mystic force that he commands, that Doctor Strange commands. At any rate, the way that this is really tilted in Thanos' favor is that you're going to roll his dice first, and you're going to resolve his dice first. And his dice usually mean that one of the counters goes up on the Infinity Stones, and then he might move, or you might have to re-roll. The thing about moving is this. At the beginning of your turn, what you actually do is you place a counter on one of the 3 sections that Thanos can turn to face. Now, let me just say this about the figurine. They didn't really have to have a figurine. They could have just had like Thanos and an arrow pointing somewhere or whatever. But I think that part of this game and trying to appeal to people who are Marvel fans is that, hey, you also get this cool kind of collectible figurine. Is it like museum quality? No, there's obviously the most amazing stuff that you can buy out there. I mean, I've seen statues that go for $3,000-$4,000 and they're not even like 2 feet tall. But Thanos looks good enough, and honestly it adds like a nice little flair to the game because you're going to be rotating him around with a little bit of frequency, and that's where some of the strategy comes into play. Because honestly, when you're trying to deal out attacks, it's 100% reliant on either the dice that you have or if you happen to have any bonus tokens. And bonus tokens are not easy to get. They basically come up every time you defeat someone. And hopefully you defeat a lot of bad guys, but I'll tell you, it ain't easy. So especially early on, you are not going to do a great job of killing bad guys unless you happen to get lucky. So the only strategy aspect other than like pooling your resources or your die is placing your token at the beginning of the game or the beginning of your turn. The problem with that is that at any minute, Thanos could turn. So you may have said, well, we're going to do this and we're going to attack here because these guys are low and we've got to be able to defend them or whatever. And then Thanos makes a turn. Or worse yet, you've got someone who's basically defenseless because they take one more hit and they're dead. And guess what? If he turns and you're not there, they're probably dead. After you resolve Thanos' dice, pretty much you go through and you try to attack. And again, that's a game of Yahtzee. You're trying to match up the symbols on cards with the symbols that you're going to be rolling with the dice. And if you're lucky, you're going to hit. And if you're not, you're not. And what we found was that it's really pretty tough to balance everything and to hammer all the bad guys. So much is left to chance that it can seem a little bit frustrating. But I think that makes it a lot more fun once you actually get there. And honestly, let's say what we're all thinking, which is that it ain't easy to kill Thanos. If it was easy to kill Thanos, Infinity War would have been a 1-movie operation, right? There's a reason why it's 2 parts. So they successfully captured that sort of spirit of, holy cow, you're basically going to have to get real lucky real fast in order to win. And at the end of the day, that's exactly what this game delivers. If you're super lucky and you're super smart and you do all the right things, you've got a good chance of winning. If you're just kind of like half-assing it and you don't really know what you're doing, you're probably going to get creamed. Does that make it a really fun game? Well, depending on your own level of pain enjoyment, yeah, it does make it a fun game. And again, if you are a Marvel fan, this game is an excellent buy. Even for people who aren't super into tabletop games, this is a fairly approachable game because, yeah, all the markers and the dice and everything looks a little bit intimidating, but as someone who has played more than his share of dice games and management games and all of these other things, I can tell you that this is super approachable. Once you figure out how to play it, you will never forget how to play it because it's just that simple. All you have to do is remember in which order you do things each turn, and once you've nailed that, you're pretty much set to go. And like I said, a game can last anywhere from 15 minutes to half an hour. They say 45 minutes. Maybe if you win, it might last 45 minutes, but our experience was that we got our asses handed to us pretty quickly. So that's another fun aspect of it, is the fact that you can just be like, all right, let's reset, let's try it again. And you can run it over and over and over again. Maybe as many times as the however many billion times Doctor Strange. Whoa, sorry, no spoilers. So, is this a fun party game? I actually think it is because it's fairly simple once you understand the flow of things. I mean, Thanos rolls first. That's a big one. You got to get used to the fact that the bad guy gets to go first, and then you get to do your moves, and you have to kind of think through things in a certain way. But it's really not that difficult to learn. It's certainly not difficult to teach people how to play because you can kind of just jump into it. So this is a great party game, especially if you have a bunch of people who are over for like some kind of a convention or fanboy event, that sort of stuff. Get people together, play this. It's super fun. It's at a good price point as well. Highly recommend it. We're probably going to say that this is one of our holiday picks. By the way, in order for Thanos to win, he has to kill 10 of your heroes. Believe it or not, that's a lot easier than you might think. Again, it all comes down to what did you draw and where are you placing them and how effective can you be when you're rolling those dice. The dice is probably the most aggravating part of all of this, but it's also well balanced, and I absolutely marvel at the fact that's a little joke, but not really. I do marvel at the fact that they were able to get this so well balanced, because you've got red, green, blue, black dice. Each one of those has sort of a specific strength between cosmic power, planetary power, etc., etc. So it's sort of interesting. There are some interesting artistic choices in some of the cards as well. I thought it was kind of funny that they didn't show Star-Lord's face. They didn't show the Collector's face. I don't know if that has to do with the actors weren't signing on board, but most of these folks are actually, you're going to see the actual stills from the movies, or you're going to see the actors in an action pose. So this is very much based on the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And if you're super into that, this game is probably the best game you can play on the market that just scratches that itch. So if you've ever dreamt of assembling the Avengers to fight Thanos, this is the ultimate game for that. This is Angry Dad Gamer. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and tell your friends. We're going to keep doing the reviews. We're going to do some video game reviews soon for the Nintendo Switch. Stay tuned.